And in this process, do you think I trust a 4-time serial entrepreneur who during 2012 to 2020 got 4 companies public? Hell no. Do I listen to him? Yes.
Right.
For sure. I listen, but do I trust? Because, dude, you were harvesting fields of wheat when there was unlimited wheat, and it didn't matter how many combine machines deployed, there was enough to gravel. Like, we're right now, there's no wheat. Like, I can't correlate what you said, Dan, right? And look at who's advising me right now. VCs and PE firms with the mindset of a decade ago. Who do I see on stages at conferences? People who have been fantastically successful over the past decade. Folks, I don't trust any one of them I trust that they do it with good intent. I trust all that. I trust that they have done it in the past. Do I trust that they can do it because they have experienced AI before? I don't think there was an AI before.
The only way to reach buyers is through the voices that surround them. The future of go-to-market is about surrounding buyers with who. The future is nearbound. Introducing Jared Fuller's book, Nearbound and the Rise of the Who Economy. Go get your copy of Nearbound and the Rise of the Who Economy on Amazon.
We're back at last. Welcome to the Nearbound podcast. Isaac, it's good to see you calling in from, you're in an undisclosed location, and I think our guest is calling in from an undisclosed location.
Yeah, I am not at my normal studio setup, and it's my own fault, poor planning and logistics. I thought I had a room dedicated here, but I don't. So I'm like on this balcony at this co-working place. I got to apologize preemptively if there are sound issues. I'll try to be as undistracting as possible, but occasionally a truck drives by. So.
And we have the legend, Jacco van der Kooij, who's also calling in from undisclosed location on the plains of the Serengeti or something like that. I don't know where you're at, Jacco, but it's good to see you.
Live via satellite. I'm looking, I got 160 megabits per second coming from low Earth orbit satellite. Yeah, right here at whatever it is, like there's the lake. But yes, happy to be here. Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. You've been someone who's been extremely influential through your thought leadership and writing, and just being kind of a legend of SaaS, and also, might I say, a positive voice. I just love the energy that you bring to every conversation, and the whenever you start something. Like, I always have a big smile on my face whenever Jacco enters the room. So thank you so much for coming on the Nearbound podcast with us, Jacco.
I'm just glad to be here, and welcome to everybody in the audience. My name is Jacco, and yes, look, to start off right with that energy, we all have to, every one of us on the call has to realize how fortunate in many cases we are, how we are the top 1% of the top 1% on this planet, and that we are blessed to be able to do this, and then so on and so forth. Like, and so with that mindset, like, yeah, it's all a win for us. We're all winning here today. So tell me, what's going on? Isaac, tell me, what do you got going on?
We just released this book, Nearbound and the Rise of the Who Economy. And we've had, the last year, especially a little more than a year, but conversations around go-to-market. And what I like to say that people are problem aware, solution wary. So everyone seems to agree that reaching buyers through inbound and outbound is getting harder. Like, nobody's saying, you know what, our inbound strategy is easier than it was last year, or our outbound strategy is more effective than it used to be. So the question is like, okay, what do we do about it? And Jared and I and many other people, there's kind of a movement around, hey, you have to reach buyers through and with the people they already trust, which involves partnering in formal ways, but also some informal ways. Everyone kind of buys that in theory, but then it's sort of like, okay, now what do we do? Like, how do you actually do that? Nobody knows. So it's kind of like, all right, well, let's just go back to more inbound and outbound. And we're trying to address that with the book, and there's headway being made, but it still feels like an uphill battle. Like, we're early a little bit. So I don't know, just given your breadth of experience, I want to know, like, what are the conversations you are having? Are you talking to people who are saying our outbound, our inbound, these are struggling? What are you responding to in those conversations?
Sure. So, let's start with a few basic, like guiding principles, called even first principles. And the first principle can be challenged, and but I would say the following first principles are here. Number one, first principles: human beings hate being sold, but they love to buy. Right? Like, we don't like being sold. Number two, first principle: the buyer dictates the process, not the seller. Right? Like, if the buyers don't like the way the seller sells, they will stop buying from them, and as a result, now what we have noticed based on these principles, a few things have happened. So let me ask you, like, do you remember for the first time that you enter a credit card and either bought a song or a book that you go like, oh, I now give somebody my wallet and I'm buying something online that's going to be shipped to me, right? How much was that purchase? Do you remember that first purchase, how much it was?
My first online purchase?
Yeah, kind of.
Probably a book on Amazon. It was probably like $20.
$20, right?
Yeah.
And if I told you then you do the same thing for $50,000, you would go like, time out. I'm not going to enter that for, okay? Now today, how much would you spend on an online purchase? Would you buy a computer from Apple online without going to the store?
100. I bought cars online without ever talking to a human person, and
my Tesla's sitting out front.
Yeah.
I never talked to it, never even interacted with a human. It beeped my name whenever I walked up to it, and I just got in and drove it off the lot. Never talked to a single human.
Okay. So point being is, doesn't matter what we as professional sellers want to do. Oh, we want to be value-added salespeople. We want to build trusted relationships. We want to do all this. What we have to realize is the buyer dominates the buyer experience. And in the consumer world, that is now stretching well beyond the $20, or starting with the $1 for a song, the $20 for a book. And we are now talking about like buying houses and cars from brands we know and trust online without interacting. I just want you to understand that that is a gargantuous, enormous change that has occurred over the past decade that all of us kind of like glaze over as if it's the most normal thing. It is not. This is shaking our trade to the ground, to the very foundations of it every day. That ground is shifting. And then if I tell you that now I'm going to use AI to clean up all the differences in between, the meeting settings, the knowledge gathering, they now will gather more information on me. It is probably right to assume that if you buy a product online, combined with the AI that is analyzing you, that they have a pretty good idea what you're interested in, what you like to know, and are able to talk to you online as a tool in the way you want to be talked to buy what they want to sell you. It's happening. It's not like maybe this will not, or no, this is. End of story. It's going.
So you mentioned a word that I think does get overlooked a lot because we don't know what it is. We don't know how to get it. And I have some phrases, Jacco, that you might like, you might not, that I think are very important in this era. Is in the book, the opening chapter is called "Trust is the New Data." Right? Data was the new oil until information data became, ubiquitous. We're overwhelmed with information. The average American gets 10,000 ad impressions per day, brand impressions, 400 to 10,000, according to Deloitte's 2023 State of Marketing. And when I say trust is the new data, let's unpack that. I have this phrase, Jacco, that trust comes from helping people reach their promised land, but it's a dichotomy, a paradox. We only trust people today who've been to the places we want to go. So when we look to make buying decisions, my hypothesis is we're typically looking for who has done the thing that I'm trying to do, right? We're looking to those voices that's like, hey, I'm trying to navigate this thing. Who else has done that? It's not a Google search. It's not an ad. It's not a white paper. And the trust that we're thinking that needs to be built right now is by surrounding buyers with the voices who've done the thing that they're trying to do. Unpack that hypothesis for me. Are we onto something, or you think that there's something fundamentally hard about what I just said?
Who do we trust to take us to who do we trust if it would take us to a place we've never been before? Call it a space journey or something like that, right? There's nobody to trust. Why? Because nobody has been there before. And so in this level of trust, you know what you're talking about is like, of course, if there's a coach who has won a championship team 25 times, and every time that he started coaching a team, he got there, like a Jim Harbaugh style of coach, right? You bring in a coach, you trust that person, right? I'm not super deep into Jim Harbaugh, but I know that he's been successful wherever he goes, right? That's the story of what I hear on the news. And so when you hire him, you trust him. You may not trust him that he gets you there, but you trust him that the process will evolve along the line. So trust here is a human response to something. Now, if I ask you, do you trust Apple? What do you trust in Apple? If you buy a phone from Apple or a computer from Apple, what do you mean if I trust it? Right? And that's the point I'm trying to hit on. And it's saying, like, look, trust is, and often we have salespeople saying is, oh my gosh, I'm trustworthy, and the reason why the person is buying from me is because of my personal relationships. That is the case, and every decade, like a salesperson strikes that relationship with a customer, and one of them, right? But I don't know whether that moving forward is that defendable for the long run.
Maybe let me give you an example in SaaS. So I'm leading revenue for a new organization, and I've bought stuff to help me with forecasting in the past. How I'd done that in the past is I'd actually Googled some stuff about forecasting and landed on Insight Squared article. And then I went through a long process over a couple of months to purchase Insight Squared. Contrast that to recently. What did I do? I went to Modern Sales Pros, a community, looked at the threads on forecasting, and then I saw Taft Love, someone who is much better at sales operations than me, recommend Clary. And then I ping Taft and I say, hey, Taft, I really want to fix X, Y, and Z with my forecasting. Taft's implemented Clary several times, and Taft says, go with Clary. And then I buy it without ever talking to anyone. I literally just say, hey, I'm buying Clary. That's how I've purchased SaaS in the past year.
That is only a temporary thing that you're doing right now. That's not defendable long term.
Tell me more.
Does Taft run the same business as you do right now? Does he have the same issues? Does he have the same data? Does your customer has the same behavior in when they're buying? You would need to verify all of that in order before you can validate Taft opinions. Now, what Taft here is, and knowing him and respecting him tremendously, Taft is here as an individual, a one-person voice that represents potentially four purchases that he made over the year, right? That is a form of trust that he evokes to you. What I'm trying to point with an Apple sells computers to millions of people, have millions of quality reports. That level of trust over a period of like whatever, it must feel like 50 years nowadays. That is a different level of trust. And what you're going to find is that per today, we're trusting people because the brands, aka the Clary, not Clary in this case, but the others that you bought for Insight Squares in the past have failed you to deliver that message. So you now go to an individual person. If I would represent to you how it would look like when that would be a doctor or whether that would be a medical, Taft has broken his leg 3 times and he got him repaired by this particular doctor. You call up Taft and you go like, hey, dude, who repaired your leg or who fixed your leg? Oh, that doctor. You go to that doctor and you go like, yeah. What you should trust is the doctor. You shouldn't trust Taft given the doctor. You should lead into and understand that Taft has an experience with that. But you now need to go to the doctor and that doctor needs to tell you, hey, thank you for Taft for sending you to my hospital or to my room. Your leg broken is differently than what Taft has. And the doctor may say, like, you actually do not have the right break that I am a specialist in. That's trust. But for the time being, we take individuals, humans' opinions as trust because the lack of the brands is so big. Now, consumer brands, will Amazon, when it says you will have it in 48 hours, we trust that in 48 hours it delivers. And although they miss it every now and then, we trust it. If Uber tells you and you give them their credit card, and Uber tells you, hey, I'm going to pick you up at this spot and I'm going to drop you off in this amount of minutes, you kind of like trust that because historically over the sample size, they have delivered.
Right.
But right now, in your world, Jared, how many times you've bought this versus the advice that you're taking from somebody, the volume is not there and the context is not there that you actually should fully and wholeheartedly trust Taft. Although that is not a problem of him. It's not because he's not trustworthy. That's what I'm trying to point out to you, right? He's trustworthy, but it may not behoove your insight.
So I'll take your kind of little counter to what I just said as at face value, Jacco, because I do trust you. What are you saying then to the? Or, are you primarily saying this to the CEO, the CMO, the CRO, or all of them? Like, what's the thing that you have to do given what you just said is true?
Educate. Trust comes from education, and proper education comes to it from proper source material and from proper things, right? And if you go like, education is a fantastic solution to helping your customer to buy. And by the way, there's a clear notice of how nearbound can help with this, right? Like that's your approach is not wrong here. I just want to make sure that your approach should be built on the fundamentals of what we're really trying to solve, which has it all the outlines are there for it. So I go like, yeah, you're headed the right direction, and you're definitely are onto something big. So I'm not questioning that. What I'm questioning is the value that we are drawing of people who tell us that they've done it in the world is not this, will 2 years from now no longer be respected and valued the same way, because we will lose context of what they may have lied to us. There's so many people right now giving their opinion. I've done it 15 times, and I go behind the scenes and they're like, no, I have not done it 15 times. Right. Right. And so we need to, again, Taft, I don't want to, since we mentioned his name gazillion times right now, but that is
an example, right?
Yeah. That's just an example. Yes.
So I feel like the problem of, people lying or being untrustworthy only further exacerbates the trend that I think Jared and I are pointing at, which is you can no longer win the battle by having the best information, because there's too much of it. There's too much good information. If I go Google, where is what's the best software for this? Everybody has amazing blog articles. Everyone has good reviews on G2. Everyone has plenty of information. Everybody's educated. There's too much education. Every company has podcasts. I can't keep up. So I have to revert to a circle of trust. And if I say, okay, well, let me go to a community, and then those start getting gamed, then I have to go even further to somebody that I have a deeper level of trust with, right? That it's like, I just don't have time. I don't think when you said education is the solution, my question is, depends on who it's coming from. Because if Jared, who I trust and know personally, says, Isaac, I got to educate you on this new product over here, we got to try this thing, I'm going to listen, and that's going to work. But if the company is trying to educate me directly through, I don't care what, social media posts, podcasts, whatever, I'm tuning out because there's just too much education on the market.
Yeah, Isaac, you're stretching a number of things that you're rightfully stretching that, right? Or you're rightfully, but that's not there. I'm not saying trust a vendor that is selling to you, right? Like I'm not saying necessarily that. And I'm not saying neither don't trust a person who's done it before. What I'm saying is you need to educate yourself, of which a person that says it, in this case, the person that we mentioned earlier, you should make sure that you double click it. But then when you buy that from whoever they're recommending, you still should check whether the context is the same on their perspective. And so like now, the sample, in many cases, what we're dealing with is sample size versus application. So sample size means if I have 100,000 people who bought this particular product and 999,999 are successful, then the risk is relatively low, right? Like you go like, okay, that's low. On the other case, if the sample size is low, I only, but there's one person who's exactly the same thing that I have, the exact same problem. I don't need a sample size of 100,000. I need a sample size of 1 or 2, right? Exact application.
Okay. I got to follow on to this because I think I just threaded the needle. Maybe, SOS, we have a software success problem. Who is out in the market really succeeding right now? Truly succeeding, to your point about Amazon getting the delivery on time, or Uber, the ride picking you up. Who has the brand affinity in B2B SaaS where their customers can rely on this every time? It seems like, Jacco, that's maybe what you're alluding to, is that like how you win today is those repeat wins for customers. And it seems like we're lacking a bit of those.
Yes. What I find is, and it's this observation that helps you over the past. If I ask you, what is Slack's go-to-market motion? How does Slack sell historically, right? How does Slack sell? What would you say? What is the historic Slack go-to-market motion?
PLG, users start signing up, they get a little pocket, then they sell into that pocket.
Okay, HubSpot, how do they sell it?
Typically PLG, CRM is their new, acquisition channel. So PLG.
Okay, but content based, right? Content driven.
Oh yeah. The inbound, obviously,
Okay.
Right.
If I pick another brand, something big, right? I say pick a Salesforce or something like that. Historically they were, but today they're deep enterprise sales, right? They use enterprise sales techniques.
Right.
And so what you'll see is that often when a go-to-market motion lines up with the product that they're selling, you'll see something. It's almost like it's a rocket taking off. So suddenly they're going, right? When a GTM motion aligns with the product that they're selling, Slack and PLG, HubSpot and inbound, large software brand, enterprise sales, right? When they line up, things go fast. Yeah?
I wouldn't disagree. What about the massive rest of the industry where their GTM motion and the product doesn't necessarily align? Let's say I sell construction software. How that doesn't seem to map the same. Tell me how it would map the same.
It would map the same if, and I'll make it simpler because I don't know construction and I don't know what to know in that. But if teachers would be selling schools, if nurses would be selling hospitals, that would make it simpler, right? If a teacher would sell to schools and the nurses would sell to hospitals.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So to me, this is why you're saying something very important right now, which is what I've said, is that we've done a really terrible job at recruiting sellers and go-to-market people that actually understand the context of the customer. So like if I was, selling into the education industry, it would behoove me to probably hire people from the education industry. And what I've seen in SaaS over the past decade is we have a whole bunch of industry hoppers, Jacco. So it's like I sold healthcare IT, and then I sold, in the sales industry, and then I sold in manufacturing, and then I sold here. And it's like, what do you know about the customer? Next to nothing other than what product marketing and sales enablement gives you.
Okay.
Jacco, I also want to throw in there, we had a really interesting conversation on this podcast with Vinay from Trust Radius, and they have some amazing data on their product review sites that people care far, far less, like 5, 6,
no,
10
it's 20
times less, 20 times
Isaac.
less about the rating. So like thousands and thousands of ratings for this product that have 4.5 stars matters way less than who did the review. If you're a CRO, you want to see reviews from CROs at similar sized company, and 5 of those is more important than 1,000 5-star reviews from people that were not in your role. So like who it is that they relate to you is more important than just the information or even the statistical significance in the abstract.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I did. Like I'm the same. Like I'll do a movie if I want to go to a movie, right? There's a few things that you do with a movie. You and I keep a movie because we have to stay away from some of these brand names and so what we're seeing is June. I'm going, okay, it has 5 or whatever, 9.2 stars. Okay, there must be a good movie. Then I read some reviews, right? Then I go like, who didn't like it? Not that it doesn't. But I want to know why they didn't like it, and if it lines up with why I wouldn't like something, right? And then read, and then you read the one who has the most reviews. This analysis of what you're trusting is based on you researching and aligning. Now, what you're looking for, if you have 20 CFOs or 20 CROs in that, what you're generally looking for is the tone of voice that they describe something with, the specific words that they're using, right? And so it goes beyond to the title or the person that they are, unless it's a known brand. If I say you it's a CFO and I have no idea where you're a CFO from, it doesn't matter to me. So I need to relay, the CFO of blah, 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 right? Like the former CRO at, like Snowflake. Oh, Snowflake, brand, trust, voice. Now I put that thing in perspective, right? So, and my point to all of this is like, if we can copy that level of trust building and that level, what Apple has done on a brand, and we can build that out on a day-to-day sales level, that will be the ideal where we need to aim for. And where I'm going to end up, folks, it's a relatively simple place to be. Is like, look, do you want to be sold a BMW by a person who is based on a commission to sell you the BMW, or do you want to be sold a BMW by a person who is an expert in cars and very passionate about BMWs? The future of sales is experts that are passionate about their product. And if that is a teacher because he or she used to teach and is now selling to school, what makes a teacher relevant is that they have the passion and expertise. They were teaching before and they had the passion to stay in the same industry. That is what's giving us the trust factor. And so in that relationship of where the future of sales is going and supporting that with AI, I can see a very, very clear picture. And yes, I do believe that inbound will be challenged. And yes, I think that outbound is already very much challenged. But if outbound is delivered by an expert who's passionate, walking the show floor at the car dealer, yeah, where I show up because I'm buying a car, then it works again, right? So like in context. But your like having read up and on what your perspective on nearbound is a fantastic perspective down here, right? Like it's an understood and appreciated perspective that if I'm coming and I am ready to buy and you surround me with people with experts and passion, there's a high likelihood that I will buy from you.
But it has to be both. I think what you're saying is it's two sides of the same coin. It's almost like nearbound employees, meaning, hey, I'm someone that lives where you live. So let's give a perfect example right here from Reveal, Isaac. Who are our best reps? Our best reps are people who've used Reveal before, right? They were actually, Jacco, we've actually been hiring former partner managers to sell and service Reveal. So our sellers and our customer success team are partner program managers who have used Reveal. And guess what? They tend to perform, to your point, much better because they understand the context of who they're selling to. I mean, that's my lived observation. I think it bridges the gap. Plus, the relationships that they have tend to be much more relevant to the buyer, so they are more likely able to surround with voices that they trust. I think your team needs to be made up of those people is what I'm hearing, not just the partners that surround them. It's both.
Yeah, no, like whatever helps the customer to make an educated decision. If we learn, so rule number one, customers hate being sold, but they love to buy. Rule number two, buying sets the experience for the seller. And number three, the best educated buyer will buy the best solution for them, which, rule number four, if the customer gets the most impact out of the product that they want and they keep recurring impact, they establish recurring revenue. If I eliminate number four and I say, you're only going to get paid on the first deal, it's only what matters, then suddenly this whole thing unravels and we're back at sales in the 1990s where I was part of setting the stage for that. And some part of it I'm very proud of and some parts I'm not. But I'm back at that stage. And what I see right now is look, recurring revenue drives recurring impact. In order to do that, I got to make sure I sell the customer something that they want. Because if I'm not wanting that, folks, it takes me 2 to 3 years to recoup not only my acquisition cost, but the G&A and everything associated with it. So by the time I get there, I need the customer, like Reveal, you need the customer to be there for 2 or 3 years in order to make a profit. If I sell them in year one, that not only makes that I'm not making money, it means that I'm losing money. So the more wrong customers I'm losing, I'm signing, the more wrong money I'm losing. If you unravel all that back down, it comes to, folks, just sell customers what they and help them succeed. And if you do that, everything will turn out fine. And
Right.
that comes back to, obviously somebody needs to cut, some trust somewhere. But most of the people, and I believe all of us right now, all of us live in a world where I trust it when I see it. Because, less and less I can trust out there because more and more is AI manipulated. As I just saw some Kate Middleton picture of a family being the story of the week, right? That picture has many artifacts in it. Well, I think the poor family is just trying to deal with what all of us are trying to do when we shoot family pictures. The kids are not smiling, so how can I get the smiling pictures with the good, But anyway, here where we are, where we're no longer trusting that particular brand because it's being manipulated for the right reasons in the wrong way.
So you've mentioned a couple times kind of AI, you've referenced it as being part of the future of selling or creating a buying experience that buyers actually want. And then you just mentioned some of the problems of AI eroding trust. How do you see these two things, like the tension here? What is your prediction for the ways in which AI is going to both improve the buying experience, but also the ways in which it's going to drive buyers crazy because now they can't trust anything anymore because everything's fake? There seems to be a tension there. How do you resolve that?
Time is the difference. We are in the beginning of a line that, like, if you stretch it out and you zone in on week by week, it goes like this. If you look back 10 years from now and that line of AI has gone this, who remember that the first week of AI, the first 100 weeks of AI, there was some dilly-dally. We've had plenty of precedent in this before. If you go back, so essentially, AI is part of the fourth industrial revolution. The first one was steam engines. The second one was electrical. The third one was robots and automation. And the fourth one is where we're in is right now is AI, clouds, artificial, the distribution of resources and the ability for us human beings to control those. All that is generation number 4. However, where over the past years, if you look at the industrial revolution, go-to-market motions, as in marketing, sales, and customer success, have been extremely delayed to the manufacturing automation process. Manufacturing in the factory world took place in the 50s, 60s. In marketing and sales, it only started to really come into play when Marketo and Eloqua came on. We were very late there with it. If you look at the sample size on what we've seen in the market again and again, the internet has proven, when the internet came on in the late 80s, technology-wise, in the early 90s, when it became popular, it had the same effect. Can I trust a brand online? When I go to a website, is that really the company, right? And nowadays, we have completely grown and adjusted to that. We buy on Amazon. Obviously, there's phishing attacks. I get that. But we completely have adjusted to that. In the future, we will do the same thing. If you go to the first websites and the experience that it had, it was ridiculously bad. And some of it was fantastic. Within 2 to 3 years, all of that was, it took more than 5 to 10 years. But this will be like I would say 3 to 5 years, all of this will be washed out. It's just a matter of time. We're just at the mere beginnings, like of something that, and the speed that it grows with. I have a challenge for you on this, or an easy way to think about it for all the listeners listening to our Isaac. If I go back to September, October of 2022, we're like 6 months before I knew about ChatGPT, at least. I don't know if you knew about it, but I definitely didn't know about it. And apparently I wasn't the only one, because, McKinsey didn't know about it when it came out of a report in Q3 of that year, months before ChatGPT launched. And they said AI was not going to take shape over years. Knowing what you know now, Isaac and Jared, knowing what you know now about what AI can do, if I would have told you in October, you never heard of this, and I told you AI will do this for your writing, this for video creation, this for and I would tell you everything that is what you now see online is happening, would you think at that point in time that humankind would eventually do this?
Of course.
Of course. Okay. What would be the time frame that you would put on that?
I think most people probably overestimate what can happen in a year and underestimate what can happen in 5.
Okay. So we're talking about 5 to 10 years, right? Isaac, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would have said 5 years probably.
Yeah. Now, and I call it 5 to 10 because I hear we are in the technology. I hear some people who are less in technology would have put it at 10 years, right? Now, what I'm trying to depict with this is as follows. We human beings have the ability to forecast the future really well. And look at sci-fi movies. They are scarily articulate. And mind you that as we all are in the time of June right now, June 2 just coming out and breaking all records, June 2 is on the backs of predicting that artificial intelligence will not help us, and therefore they are making sure that you cannot use it, right? What is the word for it? They're prohibiting use of it. Okay, but we human beings have a pretty reasonable ability to forecast the future. Would you agree with that?
Yes and no.
I guess it depends. Like maybe on basic day-to-day type things, but not very far out into the future.
Black swans, like what we really don't account for is black swan events.
That's right. Black swan, we have now, mind you, was COVID predicted that it could happen?
Of course. Of course. There's an entire apparatus that really failed in that regard.
Okay. Can we predict housing crises?
Well, we this is where I'll get political. We don't predict them, we create them, but yes.
Okay. Well, if we create them, we can predict them because that's why we
Right.
create. The point here is this on all this, and I want you to think this through because this is like a little thing that we all tinkering with right now. We have the ability to control, to predict the future. Our problem is the time frame. We have a very hard time predicting whether it will happen in 1 year, 10 years, 15 years, right? Like
Right.
I grew up on Back to the Future, and the hoverboard was in there. Okay, we have no hoverboard right now, right? Which was supposed to be, like,
I still want my jetpack. I'm really mad we don't have personal jetpacks right
Right.
now.
right? But they're coming right now, right? They are developing. You see them, but what you see is like this technically was supposed to be here 10 to 20 years earlier. Okay, so my statement here is this: we can predict the future, but we have a hard time predicting the time frame it comes to us. Now, for your business, for Nearbound, for the products that you represent, for the listeners to this podcast, I say the following: predict what you believe will happen in your business in the next 5 to 10 years, and expect that it will happen in the next 18 months.
I'm sitting on that for a second. I think that's validating to me in some ways. In other ways, I'd like to shift the conversation, Jacco, to what that conversation looks like from here. So let's say you've got the head nods with the CRO, the CMO, the CEO in a room with you. What are the takeaways that they're like, okay, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I believe, and I think I do. What's the next step that people are trying to understand? I'm trying to like go one layer deeper and peeling back the layers of the onion here with you.
Okay, so for me, and it comes down to this: what we have presumed to be go-to-market motions are similarly processes that obey the same things as manufacturing processes obey to. I believe the go-to-market motion is beyond $10 million in companies, beyond $10 to $20 million in revenue, start to operate in every form and shape like that
Right.
of a revenue factory and that of a production line. I believe that those production lines have mathematical accuracies that can be calculated and applied. And I believe that dysfunctions in that process can be improved by marginal gain theories. As simple as that. And what I see as I depict the future, I see that we're going to have what Agile is for software, what TQM is for hardware, or what Six Sigma is. We will have within the next 10 years, mind you, apply what I said earlier, that in the next decade, we will see the rise of a go-to-market quality management solution. And it will be standardized throughout the industry. So that when companies say, I need inbound or outbound, we know what that means. We know what the metrics are that they need, and we can verify it and properly benchmark it against other companies. And it's not that we're just based on opinions of a single person who's done it, which will validate the decision we're making, which will tell us where to look for the info, but simply like the overall processes will tell us what is going on.
So, Jacco, your references to manufacturing aren't lost on me because one of my favorite books of all time. I'm definitely dating myself, and there's a few embarrassing parts in this book. Have you read The Goal?
No, I haven't seen a movie about soccer about that. Is that the same thing? But I have not.
No. So the Goal is a book set, I believe, in the 50s about someone that ends up taking over a manufacturing plant and then ends up inheriting a mess. So how do they go about improving the manufacturing process? And it's actually a fascinating take on kind of everything that you're saying, and I can see it, on the manufacturing floor. Like, so when I read this book through this narrative, I'm like, oh, I'm seeing, here's the allegories to, let's say, the marketing funnel. Here's the allegories to my sales pipeline and my forecast. So I'm seeing what you're saying. And I think it is a seminal kind of timeless book. And what you're saying right now is that we're not seeing the forest through the trees. If you zoom out, the production line of SaaS is being appended, and it is going to get reduced to some, exactly Six Sigma or something like that, right? Or the Toyota manufacturing process and lean development or whatever you want to call it. That version in SaaS is absolutely going to happen, irrespective of how people are buying, right? So I think both things can be true. Go to market in SaaS is going to be reduced to a manufacturing process, so to speak. And I mean, in terms of its, least common denominators. And how we buy is fundamentally going to change forever because, as evidenced by how you opened up this show, how Tesla got me to buy, that was a smooth operation, right? They had that, the B2C side is much more reduced to a science.
Okay. I got to tell you the following, and I want to make sure that the listeners get this. The words that you use and the control of the American dictionary as you explain this to me is absolutely phenomenal. You use words that are right at the stretch of my vocabulary as an immigrant, right? And I go like, dang, they're like I wish that I could be so crisp explaining what you just did. It is absolutely fantastic. Like I am going like, wow. But I'm 100% in agreement with you. This is not just like, like the words that you're using are an absolute accurate in a single word prescription of what I'm talking about. You're 100% on. And where that leads us, if I tell you in the manufacturing process, what is the major invention other than electricity and whatnot? What is the major invention over the past 50 years that changed manufacturing?
Robotics, AI.
Robotics. What is the
Robotics,
current
yeah.
form? Yeah, robotics, right? What is the current form that is going to what is the robot of our industry as it applies to GTM?
It's going to be bots.
It's going to be AI, right?
Yeah,
And bots. AI. Okay.
Yeah.
And in this, we already established that the buying experience is up to $50,000 for consumer without getting human involvement. I like to shock everybody into reality is that the human involvement currently needed in the buying process is under severe strain. Whenever we go from no touch to low touch to medium touch to high touch to enterprise to dedicated touch, whenever we move one bracket up in a GTM motion, the cost of human beings cause it to multiply by 10. Okay. When you go from no touch to medium touch to high touch, we're talking about 10x multiplication in cost. Isaac and Jared, you're obviously very familiar with SDRs, right?
Of course.
Of course. And SDRs are being designed out by AI, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Ish, right? Okay.
Eventually, right. So I'd say ish and eventually, yes.
Okay. How many SDRs are going to cause a union because they really want to be SDRs for the rest of their lives? Well, how many will sign up, becoming part of a union and say like, hey, the SDR job is so fantastic. I want to do that for the rest of my life.
I'd say very few. And even if that were the case, that buyer behavior would eliminate them regardless. So like, even if there was a unionization, I think it would be a failed union.
Okay. And so in this case, AI is replacing an SDR role, and it's replacing the role that actually nobody in that role really wants to hold on to anyway.
Right.
Okay. So there you have it. I'm trying to lay out the line, what is going in the future, and it is crystal clear to me. Now, are we going to start? Are people who get paid $500,000 to sell like $4 million quota against $4 million quota selling $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 annual software packages? Do they have to fear? Absolutely not, folks. That's going to be an ongoing personal relationship and so on. Are companies in selling a $500 product like Dropbox, DocuSign, do they still need SDRs, AEs? Absolutely not. They will be designed out over time, right? Like you can, like you roll up, like it's going to go and it's going to start. On the upper end, AI is going to assist human intelligence, right? So HI plus AI, we're going to assist enterprise sales, more knowledge and so on. But slowly but surely, this will build. And my expectation is, you thought that was going to take 10 years? 18 months. 18 months.
Yeah. And that's why everything in go-to-market right now and these conversations are so hard in the market is there's a whole bunch of people that feel what you're saying and yet feel powerless to act on it now because of the magnitude of the shift that we're in.
And I add in there because I see this all the time. And I think that you folks, both with product, book, and everything, you experience this all the time.
Absolutely. Well,
Okay.
Jacco, just like you like to open up every podcast and show with some energy and something positive, I feel like you got to leave us with something. So what's our clarion call given this fundamental shift that's going to, change the world and the folks that are listening to this in the SaaS industry? How should we put our nose to the grindstone and go to work tomorrow after we listen to this and think, okay, yeah, we are fortunate. We are part of the 1%, but give us the optimistic take on the disruption happening.
Okay. What am I passionate about?
There you go.
What am I an expert in? Those two things combined. Now, if you're passionate about something, you have a tendency to become an expert in it. So it all starts with passion. And I generally mean, like if I see you, Jerry, you've been passionate about what you're doing. I mean, you've been so passionate. You have a podcast, you have a book. Like that is what it is about. Now, if I say Jared is a fantastic salesperson and I give you some numbnut topic that you absolutely don't like about, and I put you will fail. The company will fail and the product will fail. So all you have to do is be whatever you're passionate about, which may change over time, which is fine too. You don't have to be like, oh my gosh, I'm a farmer, I want to be continuing to farm for the rest of my life. But if you're the son of a farmer and there's a fantastic software product out there that helps farmers, that is a fantastic place to start combining your expertise and your passion. You grew up in that. I believe that if we deal with people who are constantly involved in their passion and expertise, everything will work out for the better. Like, it will be all fine. We'll all end up like, and again, a passion does not have to be a lifetime commitment, right? A passion can be 4, 5, 6 years. It's fine. But you got to be an expert in what you do. And it takes a few years to become an expert in it. And I think, Jared, you may have actually written about this, if I recall that. How many hours it takes to become an expert is a known topic. I think it's 10,000 hours or
Yeah,
something.
of course. Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
it's a known topic.
Absolutely. I mean, fantastic book. There's a Stephen Pressfield, a whole bunch of area of investigation around how to Malcolm Gladwell, right? These are some great authors that I think I'll leave the show with. If you believe, Jacco, like I do, and I have passion as the primary ingredient to my being in my LinkedIn profile, so like I absolutely agree with that takeaway. It's some seminal startup advice for CEOs and entrepreneurs. It's seminal advice for life. And I think that's the fantastic way to put a cap on this wild episode with Jacco van der Kooij. Thank you so much for joining us on the Nearbound podcast, Jacco.
Thank you all for having me. I want to ask you and Isaac one question. Isaac, what is your key takeaway that you picked up today? You go like, dang it, that is fantastic, or something like that.
I mean, really just what you ended on, right? Like, okay, two things. Whatever the changes you think are coming in 5 years, imagine them coming in 18 months. And rather than being scared by that, let that free you up to double down on your passions.
Absolutely. Love that. I love the tweak that you make towards the end. Connect to both of them, because that is, I'll take that. That's my lesson that I learned. I love the way how you connected. I never connected it that way, but that was fantastic for you. And then Jared.
Well, I think it's both things that are true, is that go-to-market is going to be reduced to a manufacturing process. That's an inevitability. And how we buy has fundamentally changed, as evidenced by the things that we purchase all around us in our homes. And both of those forces are combining and colluding into a new world that does not match the world we just came out of. So yeah, it's scary. So you better take the advice that Jacco ended on and become an expert about something you're passionate about. Otherwise, you're going to have a real tough time in the next 2 years.
I think so, and my like, just to pitch my I written a book about this revenue architecture for those of you who are looking.
Great book,
right? But but like, folks, I want to really thank you and appreciate you for having me today. I am out. I'm going to go out for a trail run. I do believe that every now and then going back into nature, and for me, that's about every other day. I'm going to go out for a trail run. I'm not as fast. Well, I'm way slower than I already was, and so nowadays I'm looking out there to get some little fresh air and be among the trees and water.
Well, I love the fact that you're going on a trail run. I've been running 30 to 50 miles a week training for my first ultra, but aside from that, no, I just really appreciated you coming on the podcast and sharing a very unconventional. Like, I didn't think we were going to go into what we went into, but it's refreshing to me because I feel the pain in the market right now amongst my peers. Like, they're not, most executives that were having a great time with me in SaaS land 2-3 years ago, pre-pandemic, and even in the pandemic, they're not having a great time. Stress is at an all-time high for them, right? And not to say that, like you said, they're very privileged, but I don't know. I just, I respected how real you got.
Okay, I want you to realize the following. I heard whatever political leader called the other day George Clooney out and said to George Clooney, he's a privileged actor, right? Something like that, right? And George Clooney gave the following feedback that struck me because it applies to us founders and people. And Isaac, I think that this will probably come hardest back to you. Most actors are some of the poorest people in the world who go to Los Angeles with the hopes and dreams of making something true. They're actually the hardest working immigrants kind of generation. When you become rich as a result of it, you become known as a privileged person. But for every rich actor, there are 10,000, 100,000 people trying to make it. The same thing for every founder. We often look at the founders, which is like an absolute minute, small group of people who have gotten all this money. For every one of them, there's 100,000 or 10, whatever, like whatever number is big to a person, of independent people crawling and scraping by every month, making less than minimum wages in order to create that. That's the people we do this work for. That's the people that, Isaac, you are here, Jared, you are here, and I'm here. I'm here to help those people become successful, right? And maybe I cannot help them become a billionaire. What we can help them with in a time of an enormous amount of change. I'm telling you, the change that we are experiencing is cultural change, financial change, business model changing, geopolitical changes. These enormous amount of change is dropped on all of us, right? All of us at the same time too, by the way, right? All of us at the same time. AI didn't say like, oh, I'm just going to help marketing automate. AI said, I'm going to help marketing, sales, the buyer, the seller, the channel, everything, all of that. Products, everything.
Right.
At the same time, never happened before. Only the web did that before, right? But this is like, so I shouldn't say never, but right. That's who we're here to help. That's what we're here to do, right? And by the way, none of us, not you, Isaac, not you, Jared, and definitely not me, can claim we have done this before and we know how to do it. What we can promise is, what we can work on is, you know what? We'll figure it out together.
Boom.
We'll do it together.
Let's go build a world where everyone can win together. That's one of my lines. Like, hey, we have to.
We'll do it together. And in this process, do you think I trust a 4-time serial entrepreneur who during 2012 to 2020 got 4 companies public? Hell no. Do I listen to him? Yes.
Right.
I listen, but do I trust? Because, dude, you were harvesting fields of wheat when there was unlimited wheat, and it didn't matter how many combine machines deployed. There was enough to gravel. Like, we're right now, there's no wheat. Like, I can't correlate what you said, Dan, right? And look at who's advising me right now. VCs and PE firms with the mindset of a decade ago. Who do I see on stages at conferences? People who have been fantastically successful over the past decade. Folks, I don't trust any one of them I trust that they do it with good intent. I trust all that. I trust that they have done it in the past. Do I trust that they can do it because they have experienced AI before? I don't think there was an AI before.
Oh my gosh. I think we're gonna have to put a cold open on this podcast. Isaac, this is the cold open.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of that meme of like talking about young people who are, trying to build wealth, trying to buy houses, they can't afford them. And some old boomer lecturing them and saying, I told you should have been born in a different year. Look, trying to use the wisdom that made people succeed in the past today is not going to cut it.
I have helped over 1,000 companies. Some companies I've helped millionaires become billionaires. And I wouldn't say 100, but probably a couple dozen, right? Do you know how many people are on stage simply announcing the as they say, the numbers they won the lottery with? They might as well do that and when they explain how they got successful, because there was no process behind it. I have worked with companies in excess of $5 to $10 billion. They're in revenue. They are. It's not like, oh my gosh, they had a fantastic idea. They got in part lucky, but in part they were forced by VCs and so on and so forth. It is very rare that you see a company who from beginning to end has become successful. And Steve Jobs talks about this. Elon Musk talks about this, right? The last one with a little bit of an asterisk. But we see all this, right? We need to make sure that we understand. We do it together. Don't trust anyone. Listen to everyone. Learn from everyone. Let's go do this together. Let's learn from each other. But also be open if it doesn't work. Let's not be afraid of saying, hey, that didn't work. Let's not go again in that direction. Okay, that's good, right? Anyway, so
I love it. The after show thoughts with Jacco. That was hilarious. Amazing. All right. We're I'm sure we're keeping you from your run, Jacco. Thank you so much for the afterthoughts.
Run
and
like the
Isaac,
wind.
I'm going to kick us off now.
I feel like going for a run now too.
Incredible. All right, Nearbound. We'll see you around next time on the Nearbound podcast.